Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
We're on iTunes. And we've got a Twitter account, at Eavesdrop Movies.
Yes.
That's what it is. If you go on iTunes and search for Eavesdropping at the Movies, you'll find us. We've got a logo and everything.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're all kicking off.
The logo is not what's important. It's...
logo is the most important thing.
No, the most important thing is the brilliance of our insights.
Yeah, that's why I made a logo. You can rely on a logo. We've seen Mountains May Depart today, which is, well, I'm gonna play a clip. My brother sent me what he understands as the pronunciation of the director's name. The director's Chinese. We mentioned him at the end of an earlier podcast, and obviously I screwed up the pronunciation. I'm just going to play a clip from my brother that explains apparently how you pronounce his name.
And if I may, the director that you mentioned at the end, Jia Zhangke, is Jia Zhangke. That's how I was told to pronounce it. I saw a film of his a few years ago called The World, which was really, really good, actually. It's really, incredibly austere, harsh stuff. But it's really got something. It's really stuck with me, The World. Jia Zhangke.
Jia Zhangke. And a mini review of one of his earlier films, which I haven't seen. I'm not familiar with the director.
So that's really put you in your place. Jia Zhangke.
Well, that's my brother for you. Jia Zhangke. So this is a film. Mountains May Depart is it's actually a film from 2015.
Yeah, so it's taken a long time to get here, actually.
Yeah, and it competed for the Palme d'Or a couple of years ago by this Jia Zhangke, who is obviously someone I'm not familiar with. Are you?
This is the first film of his that I've seen.
So, spoilers will be coming up. It begins in 1999 with the millennium approaching.
Yes.
And it's in full frame, Academy ratio. And it focuses on this love triangle between this girl who's singing at these New Year celebrations. A guy who's obviously sort of lower class. He's a miner, a coal miner, as in not a kid. And then someone who is rather richer and is a little bit of a kind of young industrialist.
Yes, you get the feeling that at that point in the film, in a way, there's not much difference between them except ambition. Yeah, so one is up and coming and he's got plans, and and the other one is an employee, but you get a sense that the distance between them, the inequality between them, is actually not very much, and in fact that becomes a plot point. Yeah, that kind of you can resist people at that point.
And at this point in the movie, I was struggling with it slightly. I think partially because my frame of reference is really off because I've seen very little Chinese cinema, and I don't really know very much about China. It's kind of an alien place to me, I guess. So I'm sure that there were cultural points, cultural sort of whatever, the shibboleths, that I was just weren't there for me to pick up on. Rather like when we saw Happy End the other day and the guy was drinking Campo Viejo and I was like, I know Campo Viejo. I bet there was Campo Viejo in this.
Yeah. I mean, I think when watching any foreign cinema, part of the pleasure is encountering a different culture and a different way of thinking and a different way of doing things and representing. And part of the problem is that there are inevitably references that you lose out on. Yeah, that there are things that you just don't get and miss out on.
Yes.
And there are inevitably those aspects of this film. But I think the general gist is maybe one we understand. In
general, it's very clear.
Yeah.
What's going on, who the characters are, and what kind of places in society they occupy.
Yes.
So then the film... this is what's surprising. I think this surprised you as well, right? We didn't know anything about this coming in. So the film's 2 hours, 11 minutes long, roughly. And after about 50 minutes, the film cuts to black and says, a film by Jia Zhangke, Mountains May Depart. And you go, this is the longest introduction to a film I've ever seen.
Yes.
And so we thought, okay, what's going on here? Because you checked your watch at that point.
Yes, I wanted to know.
It was clearly a long time. We'd spent a long time getting into his character. We thought, if that's just the introduction. And then when you return, the film is set in 2014. We've moved on 15 years.
Yes.
And we're picking up with the characters' lives a little later on. And kind of people are coming back together. And I think the film really starts to pick up this point. And then later on still, the final kind of third of the film, final movement of the film, is set even further in the future in 2025.
Yeah.
The film is so different at the end to what it is at the start. It moves and changes really organically, and it feels so natural, but you would just never have predicted it, I think, right at the start, which I think is lovely, because actually that entire opening section in 1999, I was struggling with, and I was struggling with partially because of the cultural differences, perhaps, like I said, but also because I think actually the story wasn't really interesting me hugely.
Yes.
And it was once time moved on, and then you saw how this love triangle was, how people had moved on from it, and then people kind of started to come back together.
Yes.
And you saw their lives have changed. Then I thought this film it started to come alive for me.
Yes.
I don't know about you.
There's a similar thing to me, though. I perhaps like the first movement, as you called it, which is a very good way of calling it, I think. You know, the bit set in 1999, I think I liked it more than you. You know, I was very interested in the way of life that was being represented, which seemed to be almost, you know, on the cusp of industrialization. Yeah, people are riding mopeds and coal mines everywhere, and it feels quite poor. So, you know, people go to purchase a CD player as if it's like, you know, a major kind of, you know, life expense and so on. So you get the sense that
I didn't feel it was quite portrayed as a major life expense. So it's just the girl owns a shop, basically, or she works in a shop.
Yeah, but you get the feeling that that's probably like the shop in town, or one of the few shops in town to buy electronic goods. That electronic goods are not widely available. I mean, she's microwaving her own lunch in something that she's selling.
That's true.
So, you know, you get the sense that these things are at a premium. There's still a kind of a rural kind of lifestyle, you know, that is tied to this place, right? Which is, well, it's rural. I mean, they're mining, but on the other hand, you get a sense of provincial might be a better term. Yeah, that it's a provincial town in the mountains. Shanghai is the big city they travel to when they need operations and things like that.
Right.
Fenyang. Fenyang.
Fenyang City, formerly Fenyang County before 1996, is a county-level city under the administration of Luliang Prefecture-level city in Shaanxi Province, China.
Anyway, the point is that it's a small place. It's still tied to an old way of life, yeah, which is kind of seemingly undergoing industrialization, but kind of not very developed. And actually, it makes sense. Yeah, 1999 was the year in which kind of, you know, China opened up to capitalism, and you know, the film is marking out those changes, really.
And it's actually where Jia Zhangke is from.
Right.
That
Okay,
makes
so
sense.
you know, that's another thing. So, you know, he knows the landscape, and it's quite beautiful. And what you get at the beginning is it's tied to ritual. So, you know, the New Year celebrations, and kind of, you know, and people doing carnivals on the street, and people singing collectively, and yeah, there is an aspect of ritual, of a cycle of life that's been happening there for a really long time. And that's important to set that up. You know, so you also get a sense of like changes. So, you know, what you have at the center is a woman who's been courted by two men. One is a miner, the other one owns a petrol station. One seems gentle, the other one seems very aggressive and really interested only in money. You know, she chooses the guy who is going to make the money. Right, so actually she chooses money in a way, because you get a sense that she's got very deep feelings for the man that she's turned down.
Yes.
She's attracted to the other, but really, like, you know, the whole beginning sets up this thing where she could really go for any one of them. The only difference between them is the one has money, and actually the one who has money is also more aggressive, more possessive, more jealous. So all the qualities that you see alongside his having money are negative qualities. Really. So she makes a choice, yeah, and I think kind of it's a choice that has reverberations throughout, because it's not an accident that the child she will have with the guy she chooses is going to be called Dollar.
Yeah. That's his nickname. His Chinese name sounds close enough.
Yes.
And then Dollar becomes his nickname. I think one of the reasons that I was struggling with that opening is because there seemed to be an assumption that she just has to choose between these two guys.
Yes.
And again, I was wondering to myself, like, is this something which is accepted or was accepted at this time in China, that this is what women are expected or what men are expected to do? And it makes more sense if you understand that. Because to me, I was thinking there was almost no acceptance of a third option, which was that she didn't have to go out with either of them.
Yes. But in the sense you say, well, why not? Because she clearly likes both of them. So why wouldn't she go with either of them?
Sure, but there was this kind of thing. In other words, I felt that the characters were fairly thinly drawn at this point because the vast majority of their characterization was based around this love triangle.
Yes.
And if I didn't buy the love triangle that much, then I wasn't buying the story really too much.
Well, as I said, I think better of it than you do because
I didn't think it was rubbish. I was just not
Yeah.
connecting with it too much at this point.
Well, and I see what you mean. Well, another way of putting it is that the film really takes off in the middle, and for me at least became kind of deeply moving and sad and wistful, and it had me welling up at moments really. So it's not necessarily that the first part was bad. It's just that's needed so that you can build into the second part for the way that it is.
Yeah.
But I personally also found that the beginning was, for me, full of rich detail. Like, it took trouble to show you the way of life, and the city, and the landscape, and what people do, and what few options people have. I mean, kind of one of the things that you see is, like, kind of they go to nightclubs, which look really, rough and ready. And then kind of a lot of their entertaining, courting, and whatever takes place in a landscape that is no longer quite natural. There's always like huge coal chimneys, hovering in the background, right alongside like these very majestic mountains, and what is obviously a city landmark of some kind, which is like a pagoda with a tower, right? So, what happens is that, she chooses the guy who's on his way to being rich, who's actually just bought the coal mines. The guy she turns down moves away to Shanghai. Yeah, he can't stand being in the same city as her. And in fact, he's got very few employment opportunities because his rival in love has just bought the mine he works for and has fired him. So, but very tellingly, he locks up his family house and moves away.
Yeah, he throws the key away.
Yeah.
To make a point, he throws it onto the roof or something.
That's right. And this thing about home, about keys, about having a place to return to is kind of, one of the main themes of the film, right? Yeah. Because what happens in the second sequence is, we're now in 2014 and a lot of things have happened. So the woman has divorced her rich husband, has been denied the child that she had with him. She lost custody. She herself now owns the petrol station and is kind of very well to do. At this point, the man she turned down comes back from Shanghai because he's got cancer and he can't afford the treatment. So he returns home. His wife goes to ask her for money. And she gives him the money. Though actually, you never see him again.
The film moves so beautifully between stories and in a way that is quite unpredictable and feels so natural. So you're following the minor character. So you've ended the first story with the minor character moving away because he can't take it anymore. The other two have gone off to get married.
Yes.
The film reopens on him getting his diagnosis of lung cancer. So he returns home. So you're with him. And his wife seeks out the ex-wife of the guy, the girl basically he loved formerly. She seeks her out to ask for money. So then those two reunite because he was embarrassed to ask for it and so on. And that is the last you see of him. So because you kind of, I guess I thought, we're going to pick up on what the story is and what's going to happen when they reunite, and that's going to then have reverberations, repercussions. But no. You are left with him there, and it's quite open-ended because you suppose he's going to live, he's going to get treatments, but it doesn't matter. His story ends there, and it's not. You're not told his story ends here. It's just left.
Yes.
And you realise later on, okay, so you're not going to see him again because then you're with the woman, and she has a son that she hasn't seen because the husband, the industrious husband, won custody. Her father then dies. So she brings the child so he can pay his respects to the grandfather he basically doesn't know. Yeah. And when she meets the child off the plane, this Dollar, the kid's name is, he's grown up differently, right? He's grown up in a city or he's grown up somewhere else, and so he calls her.
He's wearing an Hermes scarf.
Yeah, he's wearing a scarf, and she says that looks girly, taken off, and he calls her mummy, and she says she's supposed to call me Ma. So they are butting heads slightly. They're culturally different, and the kid's not speaking very much, and so they clearly don't know each other. But she wants to connect with him, and then obviously at the same time she's grieving deeply because her father just died, who she loved.
Yes.
But the point is, at this point, the film has changed completely, right? This is a different story now to what it was.
Yes.
The love triangle is no longer really relevant at this point.
No, but the people are.
The people are.
And feelings are, and the question of love and what it is, and
right. So this is the point. The film moves organically, and then later on, you're with the in the third moment, in the third movement of the film, you're with the child who's now 18 years old. And then he kind of forms a relationship with his teacher.
Yes.
And he's talking about his past, or trying to hide his past, but then eventually opens up. But again, the story has changed completely. So you followed the minor, you followed the love triangle, then you followed the minor character, then you followed the girl he loved, then you follow her son as he grows up. Nothing ends neatly. Nothing is neat in this, and nothing is wrapped up. But it is so organic, and people's lives change, and the film, I think, communicates it so beautifully that you don't plan for any of this. I think a Hollywood film would wrap this up so much more neatly.
Yes. Well, the film is full of a kind of hurt, that is also a kind of an acceptance of that hurt. So, obviously the mother loves the child very deeply, but has resigned herself to have a particular kind of relationship with him for his own good. He's got a better future with his father, though she should know better by now because she's thinking of a better future, meaning a future with more money, right? And what goes along with it, which is also more better educational possibilities and so on, right? And it's kind of, and she says, well, love is what hurts you, and kind of, and you can't accompany people through life, right? So there are all of these kinds of reservations about kind of, not having access to what, was expected in the promise of youth, which was, to have these fulfilling relationships and kind of these, these families and these social relations. And so kind of what you get is a sense of kind of, people moving away from their connections or just being disconnected. So the film has a neat homology in relation to the triangle because, one child is left fatherless, through death, but the other child is left motherless through circumstance, right? So, in both, there's a kind of a dispossession or an untying of ties that the film, at least, values very, very strongly, right? Because the whole of the third section is actually about the losses that goods, money, industrialization bring. So, kind of they emigrate and they get all these fancy iPads, in a house with a fantastic view of the beach, but they're completely alienated, exiled, unable to communicate. They've lost their language, right? And all that the film sees as meaningful, really. So this is where I think the woman is at the center of it, right? Because she stayed, Yeah, and she's made a life there, and she's made kind of an honest life. You could see that the guy who got rich out of corruption, and and I think the 2014 might be significant, as something that might have happened in China around that time, because the film seems to make a point of it, right? So the father says, now I'm in Australia and I can buy guns, but I have no one to shoot.
Of course, you don't see him in 2014. You hear that they've been divorced, but he's not present in that part of the film.
So we only return to him in 2025 when he and his son don't even share the same language. They have to communicate through Google.
Yeah, through some future technology, iPad 7, that translates it for them.
Yes. And the mother, there's a thing about keys and home, and always having some place to return to that you have a key to, and that you can call home, and that you will be welcomed in, right? So there's all this ceremony about the keys. So, as you said, in the first episode, the rejected suitor throws away his keys, but the woman had made a set for him, that she returns to him in the second.
I think they're the same keys. I think she retrieved them.
Okay, anyway, she returns him his keys.
It's the son that she has the set of keys made for, when she connects with her son when he's 7 years old in 2014. She says, I've given you a set of keys. This is for the front door. This is for the back door. So, if you want to come, you'll always be welcome if you ever want to come.
Yes.
And then in 2025, you see he keeps them around his neck the whole time. He doesn't want to talk about them.
Yes. So actually that sense of the film is imbued with a kind of a sense of loss, right? And the price that people pay for, migrating to better their economic circumstances, really. Yeah, that kind of, there's all kinds of social relations and cultural relations and even language that is lost as a result of material ambitions. Yeah, so you actually do see that in many ways, their life has materially improved, but you also get the sense, so in the third episode, the son wants to quit school because he wants to be free. He doesn't know what to do. He could do anything, and he just wants to be free. And you get a feeling that, even that type of feeling would have been completely alien, is completely alien to his parents, really.
Well, his parents obviously see, he has all this opportunity. They've provided for him a good education. They've worked hard so that he can have all of this. And his instinct is he's being forced into it.
Yes.
And it's something that he wants to throw away. And really it's a reaction simply to his parents having provided it for him.
Yes, I
want to
suppose.
be free.
Though a lot is made out of technology, out of iPads, out of consumer goods. Yeah, kind of, they're particularly shiny and, and, there's a lot of attention that's drawn to it. Yeah, but I think in a way, your eyes drawn to it as a way of highlighting kind of the emotional cost, the familial cost, the social price that people pay. Yeah, the kind of, in terms of, a loss of human connection and roots. Yeah.
Well, and by the time you get to the third episode, it's all about speaking English.
Yes.
The film is Chinese language up until this point.
Yes.
Primarily, there's a little bit of English here and there, I think, in the second episode. But in the third, the kid is just speaking English. He's near enough got an American accent as well, despite living in Australia now. And he doesn't really know... I guess he must know his language because he still grew up there, but he doesn't want to speak it at the very least. He doesn't seem to understand some of it. He does have to get it translated. When he has it out with his father, he does need to have it translated by his teacher.
Yeah.
So they need an interpreter there. So clearly he's forgotten whatever he knows, really.
Yes.
He doesn't share that with his family anymore. And yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't know kind of his roots or his parents' roots.
He claims to not even remember his mother's name.
Right, but but I think is clearly because when it's revealed that thing, he's constantly got this necklace on, which you don't see what's on the end of it. It's beneath his t-shirt. But when you eventually see it's this set of keys, then he's always carrying his past with him. So he's very aware of it. And actually, when he's saying, "I don't remember," I was a test tube baby. I don't know who my mother was, whatever it was. Or I don't have a mother. It's deflection, isn't it?
It is.
He doesn't want to talk about it, rather than he just doesn't know.
Yes. Anyway, that was the weakest episode in the series, in the film. Yeah, the third episode in Australia, to me, felt kind of off.
I guess I see what you mean. I think that might be because it was focusing on a character that you hadn't been introduced to at the start. I
didn't like the actor playing him.
Yeah, well, that's it. Everyone's got their taste, I suppose. I thought it was fine. I thought he kind of suited the role, but I think that when the film is it's certainly being bold insofar as we're going to end the film
in the future,
and with a hoping that you can make the connection as an audience member with a character who was brought in halfway through, as opposed to the ones you started the film off with. Although the film obviously is bookended quite beautifully with. The mother character dancing to Go West.
Yes, which is, I think, in a way, that's what the film is about. So the film has two songs, really, two central songs. One is a Cantonese song.
I've got it here. It's called Take Care. It's from 1990.
And the singer is
Sally Ye.
Sally Ye.
Or Ye.
So that's the song that the three characters listen and fall in love to, and then it's a song that gets kind of replayed in each of the episodes, actually. And then the Pet Shop Boys version of Go West is the song that begins the film, and it's the song that ends the film. Yeah.
And it ends the film in the character's head. So at the start, there's basically rubbish line dancing that opens the film, where they're all dancing to it in some dance hall. So they're actually listening to the song. And at the end, it's just the mother character on her own. She just goes out into those fields that we saw at the start that you mentioned. Those kind of fields that are scarred by sort of human involvement. And she stands in front of the pagoda, and that's her backdrop. And she does that dance again, but it's on her own, and the song's in her head.
Yes. And actually, it's very interesting because, the Pet Shop Boys version became like a kind of an AIDS anthem, right? So they reworked the Village Boys, the Village Boys version, and
Village People,
the Village People's version, and they kind of tinged it with melancholy, right? Yeah. So kind of the song is tinged with sadness, right? And so this idea of go west, we'll find a better world, yeah. It had the implications that, for people with AIDS, this world was so harsh that there was, something better in another world. And actually, it's interesting that, migration and moving and losing and, kind of the price that people have to pay, in their dream of a better life elsewhere is really kind of, this film is about loss, about the loss that journey to elsewhere kind of entails.
There's also a more literal aspect to it, which is literally Go West. The film is about increasing westernization, the loss of the kind of Eastern cultures as the kid grows up in a Western society and speaking English.
Yeah, so he goes east.
Yeah, though he he will return east. The film leaves on a slight.
But they're in Australia, so.
Right, but I mean that's between West as in the Western world, right? That's not the Orient, is it?
Right, okay.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but when you said literally, I'm
literally in a figurative way. I mean, if you go south, really.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't like the last episode. So there's a very touching older woman whom he develops a relationship with, and I thought she was lovely, the actress playing her. But, it just seems to bring another aspect of the film that wasn't kind of really there, and I didn't quite get. So on the one hand, she's also a migrant, from Hong Kong that ended up in Toronto and is now also living in Melbourne, and, she's his teacher, but then it becomes kind of sexual, right? And I personally could have done without that. I think it took the film into another dimension, which wasn't kind of quite clear to me anyway.
It wasn't too clear, but it wasn't unwelcome. I mean, I guess I appreciate the idea that he's, as everyone else is, he's trying to make a connection. He feels that this for some reason, it's the only person who he feels comfortable doing that with.
I suppose, but then they have that conversation, if we go to see your mother, how would you introduce me? As your teacher, as your friend, as your lover? And when he can't answer, you realize there's no place for her either.
Well, he doesn't have to be, head over heels. But it's complicated, isn't it? Love's allowed to be complicated. It is.
It is. And actually kind of, laying open those complications, those bits of hurt, kind of, the hopes that people have, for themselves and their children and their future, and all kind of laced with loss and things that just cannot be, and, fate that takes them, and hazard that kind of places them in different positions that disconnects them. It's one of the things that is truly beautiful about the film, I think.
Yeah. I want to talk about the costumes because I was really noticing them from the beginning. So the film opens up on these kids are about 25 years old at this time, and the rich fella shows up. So the three of them are there together, and the rich fella shows up and says, "Come and see my new car." And they go out to see it, and they're leaning over a balcony, and the girl says, "Oh, it's red. You're showing off." And the main component of the frame at that point is her giant red coat. So you think, okay, well, so the film is doing something here. So I
Yeah.
started noticing it from then on, because she clearly the coat is important to her, and the film actually, I think it stops doing this so much by the end, but for the most part of the film, you are seeing characters defined by their clothes insofar as they wear one set of threads
Yes.
throughout pieces throughout long stretches that really define them, as in like over several days. You're not just seeing them wearing the same thing later on in the same day. They wear these things as though they are their uniforms.
Yes.
So this red coat is very important, but then later on it turns to a green coat, and I think that's to do with when you see the miner's wife go and ask her for money.
Yes.
The miner's wife is wearing this coat which is part green and part red, and it's after that this red coat you don't see anymore, and the wife, that the mother starts wearing a green coat instead. And it's like the connection that she feels, or the kind of love that she felt she lost or never took up with the minor character. It's some way. It's like some attempt to retrieve that or kind of access it by putting on the costume of the wife he ended up marrying. Then later on, she's wearing this black and white jumper, which is new because before. The entire start of the film, she's wearing this red coat and this stripy jumper, which is all these different colours. And then ends up the dog is wearing that jumper by the end. She gets this dog, and it lives with her for a long time. And the dog is wearing that jumper at one point, where she is kind of given it up. She's now wearing this black and white jumper with these kind of stripes, and this kind of angular design, which you then later on see is in the kid's flat when he's grown up in 2025 and he's living with his dad in the flat. That black and white stripy design is echoed by the couch and the cushions.
All right. Okay. I didn't get that, but I thought the dog was important because, when they get engaged, they get a dog. They buy a dog, and they're told the dog will, could live for 15 years if you treat it well. And actually, what you end up with is that, the leading character, the only relationship that she has that endures is her dog. Yeah, kind of, that's what lasts her throughout her life, her relationship with this dog. Her father dies, the man she loves but rejected dies. The man she married has moved away. The son she bore has also moved away. So she's basically kind of, left alone with her dog and actually having made a reasonably good life.
Yeah.
Which is, quite extraordinary for a film to show that.
Yeah. I think it is an extraordinary film. I think it's so ambitious. And like I say, the way that it moves so confidently past these stories. It's happy to drop a story when it feels that something else is more interesting or something else is more important, and these people's lives aren't about this. The three characters at the start, this love triangle, you think this will define everything, and it doesn't. It doesn't continue throughout. Like I say, in that second story, you leave the minor character. In that second story, you don't see the dad character. Obviously, the girl ultimately is the constant. You see her again right at the end, but she's not really present in a lot of the third story.
Yes.
And so the film, this feels like life, right? Life isn't about everything wrapping up neatly. It's about, when you look at your life now, if you think back to 20 years ago, things were just so different. You knew different people.
Yes.
And I mean, me, 20 years ago, I was fucking 8 years old, so 9 years old. So like, it's not really the same. But
yes, I knew different people.
You knew different people, and you were an adult back then,
yes.
right? So so you didn't necessarily think your life would go this way or the other way, but you weren't preparing for it, or you weren't planning it, and now you just think like your life just has gone this way, right? And you had one go at it, and the film really captures that feeling of things happening to you or around you or with your involvement, but then
well, the film shows people making choices that have repercussions that they did not even imagine. Right. So in this case, choosing one man over another meant choosing a completely different life, a different country, losing her child, kind of all these things. And I think what's interesting about the film is that it shows this really on the level of feeling, right? And I can't emphasize enough how moving the middle episode is. But on the other hand, it is also telling you something about the society and the culture and the nation of China, right? Because I do think that the thing about positing the last third of the film in the future, right, is also a way of asking, is what's happening now, with industrialization, all this great prosperity and so on, the migrations of people all over the world, kind of, what are the effects of this going to be? I think there is, I'm not too sure because I don't know the culture, but I suspect that, that 1999, 2014, and then setting it in the future in 225 is a way of commenting on, the nation or an aspect of national life.
Yeah. I should clarify, I think. I wanted to clarify that you're absolutely right when you say it's about the choices people make and about the effects they then have, but it's not like sliding doors, right? It's not like it's not like your life could go one of two ways. It's like so when the mother character comes back and meets the minor character and she gives him money, there is this definite feeling of a life that she could have had, or what she gave up. Maybe she made the wrong choice because she clearly still has feelings for him. And things have not gone quite so right in her life up to this point, in the last 15 years. But it's not a sense of like it was choice A or choice B. It's just a case of this is where my life has gone, and there's no feeling of like I sacrificed this or I got so many points. I won or I lost. It's just this is what happened, and it's taking it at face value, taking it in, which I think is so beautiful. I think. And it's so moving. The very end, where she's dancing and she's found this peace with herself, or she's built this life for herself, and she's just found she's in her place, and she's comfortable and happy with her dog, and with the pagoda. I found that so moving. I welled up at that point.
Yes. Well, what it made me feel is the how do you pronounce the director's name?
Jia Zhangke.
Jia Zhangke. That I want to become much more familiar with his filmography. So I think this is a film with greatness in it. Really, I don't particularly think it's a great film. I think the ending is the last episode or the last movement, as you called it, is to me a problem, but it has some truly exquisite things in it, and
it looks beautiful as well. It's beautifully shot, and actually, it's something which I should have said when I said the film is in full frame. That's just the first movement.
Yeah.
Then it moves into widescreen in 2014, and then even further widescreen in 2025.
Yes,
and the cinematography opens up.
An important point.
Rather like the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yes, there's also something slightly. Kind of when you say it's beautiful, it is. But on the other hand, I don't know, I haven't looked it up, but it really looks like it was shot digital. It's super sharp, right? In ways...
We saw it at the Mac again.
Yes.
A 4K projector we're in love with.
The 4K projector we're in love with. But there is something about the digital that I just thought was almost like too sharp, too clear, too sharp.
Well, there are parts of the first movement that are shot what looks like on DV because they're actually it's as if they've been broadcast on TV. I think you'll be shown them as though they're broadcast images from 1999, so that they're standard definition blown up. To a giant cinema
there are some
screen,
bits of that,
which is obviously done quite deliberately. But as you say, the rest of it is incredibly sharp. I'm just going to see if I can find any information on that. Camera, Arri Alexa. Source format, Arri Raw 2.8K source format, digital intermediate 4K, so digital ultimately. Yeah.
It looks it, know. And actually kind of there's something that I mourn, but the whole sequences with at the end, there's a sense in which there's very attractive women. There's something about the digital camera and the lighting, it's just too harsh. you can see kind of little lines all over her face where you really shouldn't be seeing them. And actually you wouldn't,
Why shouldn't you?
because it brings up a question of age that shouldn't be there, with someone that age, and it wouldn't be there in real life, but for that extraordinary microscopic clarity, that the film, that the digital kind of brings out, So yeah, that would be.
Well, I mean, that she looks the way she would, like when you see someone in real life who is 50 years old, you see them in clarity.
She's not 50.
Well, it's 25 years on at the end. So
No,
she's
no,
not
I'm
50.
talking about the love interest. Who's a divorcee, who meant to be in her 40s, I think.
I think she's knocking 50 as well. I think the idea is she's old enough to be his mum.
Well, yes, that is the idea. Nonetheless, I think the lighting is very, very harsh on her. It's too harsh on her.
And I think you're just used to having seen blurry films.
No, I think it's an issue, and I think it's kind of anyway. I think not enough care was taken with that, and it wasn't expressing, I think, what it intended to express. You saw the lines are tiny, and yet you see every single one of them.
But you see it on the kid's face as well. I mean, he's a spotty little oik, and you see all of that in great detail as well. Like he's no Casanova. He's no Picasso, or whoever made people look good in paintings.
Well, that's true, but anyway, I think it's a problem. I mean, unless that was a deliberate thing to show you, right, rather than something that the camera just captured because of what it is, then I think it's a problem, because
it felt to me like the film was emphasizing it. It felt to me like it was a choice.
Right.
I suppose not so much with the love interest character because she's new, but certainly with the mother character, who you've seen as this clear-skinned young woman.
But the mother character is not a problem, but I didn't even notice it in the mother character. What I did notice is they're in bed, right, and you get a huge close-up of, the elder woman's face with a young boy, and, her face was full of lines,
I'm struggling to see what you have a problem with then, because, like I say, I mean, I thought I saw the same things in the mother character. She was clearly her age.
I just think it's harsh on the actress, because if what you want to show is an older woman and a younger man, kind of, I don't think you need to be that harsh on the actress. Okay. I think it's something that the digital brings out, and that I think kind of filmmakers need to be able to better control.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Well, you write to him then, and you tell him.
Well, it's part of a larger problem.
Well, there is certainly an aspect with digital technology, high definition and ultra high definition, and high frame rate as well. Occasionally, making things clearer that makeup and set design and all these things do have to cope, because things you could get away with in the past you can no longer get away with. Yes. I mean, there were things in The Hobbit was shown in high frame rate, filmed in high frame rate,
I hated that,
and it was awful. It looked like a soap opera.
Yeah,
and I think the reason that film had nothing happen for about 40 minutes at the start was because you just had to get used to it.
Yes.
You had to get used to the way it looked, so that when the film actually told the story, you weren't bothered by the frame rate. It looked awful. Yes. And there is an element of, although it's cool you can do certain things, it brings in problems.
I remember seeing this wonderful film on Vogue, the Vogue magazine, and one of the editors saying, I don't want everything pink clear and crystal sharp. Like, I want things to be out of focus. I want fuzz, right? Like, kind of, you can't make every aesthetic decision end up being about, pinpoint clarity. Like, and actually, I think, well, what I'm questioning in this film is whether, it was a deliberate choice to show you all those lines, or whether actually it was just the camera's pinpoint clarity gives you that, so that's what you film.
That's fair enough. I think that's a reasonable question, because I don't have an answer to that, to be honest.
No.
I think that's a reasonable.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise it as an issue. I don't have an answer to it either.
What about the title?
What about the title?
I don't know. What does it mean? I think it's a beautiful title. It's very poetic.
Mountains Must Move.
Oh, you're getting well, one word out of 3 ain't bad.
So remind me.
Mountains may depart.
Mountains may depart.
There's a beautiful kind of image of momentous movement
Okay, so you
that
see
matters.
kind of, the title kind of emphasizes my reading of the film, really. These things, this way of life and these people and so on that, is tied to the mountains, at the foothill of these mountains, and that, seems to have this permanence, but actually kind of, they dissolve, they disappear, things change, right? Kind of, so, I suppose the mountains are always there, but the people for whom that place is meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so the kind of mountains is the idea of the culture, the things that have been there for thousands of years.
Yes.
Are being lost by the migration, the growing up in a new world, or speaking English and in a different place. These mountains. It's the idea of departing. That's a beautiful word to use.
Yes.
It's really melancholy, isn't it?
It is.
But then also, I guess the idea of the things things also closer to home, your family.
Yes.
Not being there anymore, and these things being enormous upheavals. Like it's such a deep problem for the mother that her son isn't there.
Yes, and actually, I think it's so beautifully done because she's very unsentimental about it, or she has great depth of feeling.
Yes,
but she makes a rational choice. Yeah, that it's better for her child, that the child is better with the father because the child can have all these opportunities with the father that she can't give him. She's clearly fought a major custody battle over
yes,
him.
I was going to say it's not quite a choice. She said she lost custody. I think. He won custody, but I think it must be more that she came to peace with that, or came to saw the benefits of it.
In the discussion with the boy at the end, you get the sense that she knows the boy will get a better education and better choices in life with the father.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think she's a very good actor.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So it's that it is a choice, and it's a choice that comes at a cost, because I'm sure, that she could have fought the decision to leave the country. So yeah, I think it's something that's in the film, really. I don't know why I feel this, but I do, right? Because this whole thing of she eavesdrops on this question of moving to Australia, right? So I think if she just made a selfish decision based on herself, yeah, she wouldn't have said those things. Yes, I will put the child on the plane for you, right? Yeah, I think it is a conscious decision. She says it several times. You'll be better off with your father,
Yeah. But is she trying to convince herself?
Well, I think the key thing is that she knows what a loss and a wrench it'll be.
Yeah.
Right? And on the other hand, some of the violence that she has with the child, right? Like when she asks him to kneel at her father's funeral and so on, it's kind of
shoves him to the ground.
Shoves him to the ground. Like, you get a feeling that, like, the ritual and culture and place and respect for all of that is very important. Yeah?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, at that point, certainly tensions are high, and she's grieving openly. It's at the wake.
But I'm saying that it's a theme that runs throughout the film, because actually, what the son loses in Australia is all of that she's trying to. That she gets angry at him about at the funeral. That she wants to convey the importance of it. Yeah,
and he's feeling a deep sense of loss for that, even though I guess he can't quite place it, or doesn't know entirely how to express it. Or even maybe doesn't even understand quite that is what he's feeling.
Yes.
But he's out of place.
Yes. But it's interesting because there are two moves in the film. The first is the boyfriend to Shanghai, who gets cancer. Right. But at least he's got a home to return to, and at least it's his country. Whereas, the people who are shown to emigrate to another country are shown as being, like, truly lost. Like, the father is half bonkers, right? Mm-hmm. He just plays golf and plays with guns in this, like, magnificent house, right? Mm. So, and the son is lost. Okay, let's wrap it up. Overall view?
Overall, I think it's incredibly beautiful and very ambitious. And it didn't go places I thought it was going to go. And I'm so glad it ended up being what it was. Things started to take shape and significance in the second and third portions of the film where they were being set up in the first part. So I think it's a fantastic piece of work, and I'm really glad that we saw it.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, let's wrap it up here. I think it's great, and I want to see the rest of his films, really.
Yeah.